Hi guys, Ronnie here. Today I want to bring you a quick video recap of yesterday's time trial that I took part in. So it was an extremely difficult one because the course was basically split to two sections. The first one was a very flat, very fast 14-kilometer main road, and then we turned down to basically 12 kilometers of mountain road and quite a serious climb with more than 500 meters of elevation in it. So at first I wasn't really sure about my bike setup, but in the end it turned out pretty well. The weather was quite bad. It was very cold, around 15 to 13 degrees Celsius, so basically half of what it has been like for the previous days. But it made competing a bit more easy because I didn't have to worry about water bottles and hydration that much, and about overheating as well. So luckily there was very little wind, but the rain was coming on as the race went on, so all the corners and roads were extremely slippery because it hasn't rained for a while, and they all had this grimy grease build up on the surface. So, and the rain wasn't very strong, it was just very stable drizzle, so it didn't wash that off. So yeah, it was extremely slippery, and I had to be very careful with the corners because, well, to be honest, these quarter speeds are very fast, but in terms of grip they are not the grippiest star out there. So yeah, I had to be very careful and I didn't want to crash. So the race went on quite well. I was starting among the last riders, so basically at the very end of the race, and I wanted to keep my power at around 300 watts for the duration of the race, which I knew it was going to be very tough because previously I have reached 300 watts for 20 minutes. This race was going to last for more than 40 minutes, so I went a bit careful in the beginning. I went on 280, 290 on the straight bit, on the flat bit, and then as we hit the climb, I knew that that's where it's going to matter the most, so that's when I started to push the power closer to 300, 310, then 330 in the last kilometer or so, and then 500 in the last 500 meters. So pacing wise, it was completely spot on. My heart rate was around 180, so yeah, that's basically my threshold right there. I didn't have any crisis or anything. My legs felt fine, so yeah, very happy with the result. Also got a power record for that amount of time. So, and of course that was enough to take the win in both my age group and overall, which I'm very happy with. One problem I had, I was held up by some cars, by some traffic on the flat bit because they are struggling to overtake the slower riders, and I had to slow down from around 50 km per hour to 30 for, well, more than a couple of seconds. For around 20-30 seconds I was just going at 30 km per hour, so that really hurt my time, but luckily it was enough for the win. But I reckon I could save another 15 to 20 seconds at least on that bit if I don't get held up next year. And of course when the corners will dry, that should make up for another at least 10 seconds, I think, even at the same power. So the conditions were not as fast as they could have been, but never mind that. Because of the split nature of the course, I was really thinking a lot about my bike setup, because I had to be fast in the first section and then also be able to climb well. So my first dilemma was with the gearing. That's why I went out to the course. Luckily it's very close to me, so I had that opportunity. Because obviously I have a one-bike setup, a time trial bike, so it's a bit more difficult to judge the gearing. And I have a pretty big 54 tooth in the front, but luckily the climb is quite shallow actually. On the last bit steepens up to around 10%, and I use my 32 cassette. I could have used the 36 force cassette, but that weighs twice as much, so I didn't really want to have so much rotating weight to carry around, so I decided to stick with the 32. And actually in the last part, when I was going basically all out full gas, then the 54-32 gear was enough to keep me over 80 cadence when doing that kind of power, so it turned out fine. Wheels wise, I know I wanted to stick with the disc and I wasn't sure about the front, because the tri-spoke is very heavy compared to my other wheels, or actually that's what I thought, but when I measured it up against my MV 4.5, actually it's just 100 and something grams heavier, and since there was no wind, I just stuck to those because I really like that wheel. And then position wise, yeah, it's fairly unchanged from last time. And one other thing I was thinking about is the helmet choice, because I know if it was going to be hot, then I would overheat in my Giro Arrowhead on such a long climb, but since it was cold, I stick to that, because it's a very fast helmet, obviously one of the fastest. And it worked out fine, apart from one thing. I thought the visor was going to be a problem because of the visibility, but actually it's quite lightly tinted, so it wasn't a problem even in the dark, in the rain, among the trees. But it fogged up on me pretty hard, so I had to remove that, and it would be catastrophic on any other helmet, but luckily Giro have probably thought about this, and they have these magnetic docking spots on the helmet, so I just tore the visor off and put it on top of my helmet, and I was good to go, good to climb. Yeah, so this is basically how my race went and how my equipment and I performed. I hope you've enjoyed this analysis. You can find some data on Strava, although I have to say it's a bit skewed. For first, because I always have my Garmin running basically 5 to 10 seconds on from the finish, so the average power numbers and average speed numbers are a bit skewed by that, but I have written the proper data in the description of my Strava file. And then, since it was very humid and wet, the humidity played a bit of a thing with my altimeter in the Garmin, so actual elevation for the course was around 500 meters, and in the Strava file it's only 200, but I guess it's quite obvious that from 37 km per hour average speed at 300 watts, yeah, that's not what you do on a flat with a time trial bike at 60 kilos. So anyway, I have the proper data in the description down there. Okay, so now if you want to see more about my bikes and how I set up them for different races, then don't forget to tune into my channel and subscribe. It's all for today. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.